Welcome to We the People, a Bradley Speaker Series. I'm Rick Graver, president of the Bradley Foundation. Thanks so much for joining us. According to a recent survey, Americans trust businesses more than their own government, and perhaps that explains why CEOs are voicing their opinions on political issues in a way they never have before. Yet our guest today argues that there are significant implications to shareholders and stakeholders when CEOs of publicly traded companies play the role of woke politician. He also says that the left's takeover of corporate America has been decades in the making. Stephen Soukup is the author of The Dictatorship of Woke Capital, How Political Correctness Captured Big Business. He's the senior commentator, vice president, and publisher of the Political Forum and the director of the Political Forum Institute. Welcome, Steve. It's great to have you.
Thank you very much for having me, Rick. It's my pleasure.
Steve, let's jump right in. Many institutions have always tilted left, academia, Hollywood, and media, just to name a few. But big business has historically been either neutral or even tended a little right. So it seems that corporate America's capitulation to the left has occurred rather suddenly. But you make the case that there's been, in your words, a decades-long stealthy effort to politicize American business and use its power to advance an otherwise unpopular political agenda. Elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, I argue in my book that if you want to trace the origins of the left's takeover of American business, you probably have to start with all good and all bad things in the West with the Enlightenment. But to save some time and some pages, I start the narrative in 1876 in Baltimore at the newly founded Johns Hopkins University, where Richard Ely, one of the godfathers of American progressivism, is an instructor, a professor, and one of his graduate students is Woodrow Wilson, also one of the godfathers of American progressivism. And together they formulate their ideas about the administrative state and the belief that there must be some sort of professional class, some sort of guardian class that manages the affairs of the masses, because the masses are simply not smart enough, not educated enough, and too selfish to manage them on their own. So if you want to start at the beginning of where this actually begins, the left's takeover of big business, it probably begins there in 1876 in Baltimore. If you want to get down to the specifics and when the left moved on from the other institutions of cultural transmission to business specifically and focused very, very hard on business, I would say that effort probably begins in the late 70s and the early 80s in the transformation of what was once a tool for business, a tool to be a successful business person, a successful business operator, and the alteration of that into a tool to change the way business behaves more generally. And that's what we know today as the stakeholder model of capitalism.
Amazing that it's been going on that long. Steve, when corporations or sports leagues take political stands, their actions seem to hurt the very people they think they're protecting. And let's talk for a minute about Major League Baseball's decision to move the All-Star game out of Atlanta because of this new Georgia voting law. Atlanta will lose an estimated $100 million in economic activity and many, many minority jobs as a result of that decision. Are corporations taking that into consideration, or are they simply just too concerned about the PR risk of doing nothing?
To be honest with you, I don't know what Major League Baseball was thinking. Not only is Atlanta a majority Black city, 52% Black, it also has 30% Black business ownership. It is the number 5 rated city out of 142 nationally or for Black business owners. And Major League Baseball took that $100 million in economic impact, estimated economic impact, and it took it from Atlanta and from that 30% Black-owned businesses and put it in Denver, which is about 8% Black population, about 3% Black business ownership, and somewhere in the neighborhood of 126 out of 142 states or cities rated for Black business ownership. So what Major League Baseball did was a crime to Black business owners in Atlanta and in the entire region that would have benefited from this economic impact. So I have no idea what they were thinking or why they thought that this was a good idea. As for other businesses, I think that they just believe there are probably some who feel pressure from outside interest, but we also are dealing with a great deal of arrogance in the C-suites of some of these businesses, where some of these executives just believe that they have ideas that need to be shared with and acted upon by the people in order to save them from themselves. Again, this goes back to the history of the anti-democratic nature of the left's takeover of business, this belief that the people are not capable of governing themselves without some guardians stepping in to take matters into their own hands.
In the case of baseball, you have to wonder if the commissioner even bothered to read the law, because it's a very common sense approach to election integrity. It's just very, very sad.
Yeah, and even if it weren't, the damage done to the city of Atlanta is just unimaginable.
Yes. Free market advocates argue that corporations largely make decisions based on what the market demands. And if they don't, the market will self-correct, and therefore no action is necessary to overcome corporate wokeness. But you say the opposite has happened, that markets have been unable to self-correct because of the size and scope of the effort to undermine them. Explain what you mean by that.
In the second half of the book, I cover the players on both the activist side and on the defensive side. And the activist side is probably about 45, 46 page chapter, the biggest chapter, the longest chapter in the book. And those playing defense, those who wish to keep business from weaponizing capital against the American people, is about 6 or 7 pages, the shortest chapter in the book. The political left has been very organized for quite a long time and has put a great deal of effort and resources into this effort over probably 25 years while the rest of us were sleeping. Additionally, what we have at this point are large activist asset management firms that are pushing this woke agenda on American business in ways that most average shareholders are unable to compete. Between BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard, which are the 3 largest passive asset management firms in the world, they control about $20 trillion in assets, which equals about 18 to 28% of every single company in the S&P 500. So they have almost unlimited power to do what they want. And over the past couple of years, they've all agreed that what they want is to push an environmental activist and a diversity agenda on American business.
Obviously, we're late to the game, but thankfully there are some efforts, thanks to you and others, to fight back on this. I know Justin Danhoff of the Free Enterprise Project has done a lot of terrific work on this issue, and the two of you have started a website called Stop Corporate Tyranny. Explain to us what you hope to accomplish through the website, as well as other efforts that you've undertaken.
Well, in order to push back effectively, I think we need to do 2 things first. And the first of those is that we need to spread the word. We need to make sure that everybody understands what the problem is, who's causing the problem, and why they're causing the problem. And then secondly, we need to be able to find a place where people can organize to push back somewhat. And that's what the website is intended to do. To help people to understand the problem, and B, to give them an opportunity to organize with one another and to push back against those who are using their capital, in many cases, the people's own invested wealth, to push political ideas that are contrary to their own beliefs.
So let's drill down on that just a little bit. What can the average person do to stop this overwhelming tide of corporate activism?
First, make themselves aware of the problem. That's the first thing and the most important thing. Beyond that, what average people can do is take back what is theirs. When I mentioned the big three passive asset management firms and the $20 trillion that they have under management that they're using to push a political agenda, that's not their money. That's money they're investing on our behalf. That's our money. We can take back control of that money. We can threaten to move it to other funds, to other asset management firms. We can engage with the firms to convince them that the usurpation of our shareholder rights, which is what they have accomplished by having us invest in their mutual funds, in their exchange traded funds, is something that we will not tolerate anymore, that we would like to have a say in how our wealth is invested. And so we just need to be active and aware and willing to push back against those who are using our wealth to make a political statement.
We've got a big fight ahead of us indeed. Stephen Soukup, thank you so much for your work in this area. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today. And as always, thanks to all of you for joining us on this episode of We the People.